And yo, guys, you already know who it is. Let me even take my glasses because of reflection. It's myself, King Jones. We got Uncle Steve here. This is the football pull up. Let's make some noise. Come on, guys. And we've had an amazing weekend. There's been some great football games. There's been some losses, some wins. The table hasn't moved too much, but some of the results have. We're going to talk to you first, Uncle Steve. How have you been?
Been good, man. Been good. Lots happening on watching the AFCON and of course the Premier League return. So yeah, lots of football on. So enough action.
Of course. Well, yeah, some of the big news in the AFCON. I think Congo are through to the semi-finals, aren't they? Massive news
Yeah,
for
that's right.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Congo versus Ivory Coast,
Yeah, I can't
and
believe Ivory Coast is through after some of their 4-0 loss in the group stages. Do you feel like the home advantage really does something mentally? Because if you watch most competitions, international competitions, when you have like a home country, whether it was England in the Euros or anything like that, they tend to get to like the minimum, the quarters, semis. They tend to really push on. Do you think there's a real belief behind them when it's in your own country?
yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, a lot of the certain decisions will always go favour the way of the host because they need the host to be in a competition as long as
Yeah.
possible. You know,
Mhm.
they've got marketing, advertisement rights, so money talks. So the hosts, the organisers, referees, everyone's in it will want the host to go as far as possible, at least a quarters. So
Mhm.
it's not surprising. So certain decisions will go their way, uh, as well as decisions. Obviously, they've got the home support, but the organisers will do what they can to aid the hosts. So yeah, they're not surprised. The hosts usually get to the quarters at least, so I'm not surprised
Mhm.
there.
And what do you have a team that you think are going to win? Obviously, we're hoping for Nigeria, but like,
I think Nigeria will make the final,
mhm,
and it'll be. I'm not sure it'll be Congo or Ivory Coast. I'd rather play Ivory Coast in the final.
mhm,
To be honest, I think Congo they look dangerous. They look good. They look really good.
mhm.
They look strong.
So we'll go straight to the biggest game of the weekend, and obviously that was Liverpool versus Arsenal. Arsenal getting the win. Like a lot of controversy in the game from the pundits, especially Carragher being very sour about the celebrating at the end, talking about different injuries, some of the decisions in the game, some of the atrocious defending that we saw. How did you feel as a Liverpool fan about the game, the lineup, the overall?
Um, Disappointed with the lineup. I think he should have started Nunes from the start.
Mhm,
It would have countered the Arsenal press. Um, with Nunes in the front three, on the left, with the press, McAllister would have found him over the top diagonally. In that first half, which was, there was lots of space behind there, especially the attacked Zinchenko side, as we saw in the game against them at Anfield and also at Emirates. So I was surprised he didn't start Nunes because there's no Salah. So I think for me that stemmed the flow. That suited Arsenal because you could press. There was no one going to spin in behind, and you condensed the field, made it really, really small and short. So I think from the off, when I saw that, I thought, yeah, Nunes should have started. So I think personally, he got it wrong, or it gave us a lack of options. Arsenal played well. They started the first half really good and brave. The quality of football wasn't great,
yeah.
but entertaining, excitement. Obviously, nerves were there. So I think the nerves attributed to the errors, especially by Liverpool made. And um, and again, I said it after the first meeting in the FA Cup. McAllister in the six against a high quality team like Arsenal City, he struggles because he
Mhm.
needs time on the ball and he doesn't have time on the ball because they're closing down so quickly. So again, that's also again possibly an error in terms of Klopp in terms of picking a team. But I guess he was confident after the 4-1 win against Chelsea, so he thought he would stick with the same sort of tactics, but different opposition. So I think from the off, Arsenal were always going to be favourites for me. As soon as I saw Nunes not starting, it wasn't so
Yeah.
positive.
I was watching obviously as an Arsenal fan. I was watching the game and I thought that personally when I was watching the Liverpool team, I thought McAllister was quite ineffectual. But again, like you said, I don't think he's a six. So when I was watching him, I just wasn't impressed. But obviously, when I see him at his best, he tends to be driving forward. He tends to be closer to the edge of the box. Him on the other side, I felt like he wasn't on it. And I also feel like I think Declan Rice won that battle in the midfield on that day. I feel like he was the winner. I assumed as well that Nunes would start because I always felt like Nunes would give us a bit of trouble. You know what I mean? He's always running.
Yeah,
If you can't really make a mistake when Nunes is there, especially with Gabriel, those sort of like a bit hyper players that he can kind of do a battle with them. I feel like Gapo's not as quick. He's a bit more controlled and he
yeah,
doesn't really make defenders worry. So especially with no Salah there, I thought he'd be the guy that you'd be like, okay, directly just make
exactly.
runs, keep running. You know what I mean? I was a bit happier when I saw Nunes on the bench. In terms of Arsenal, I was worried at the beginning because Jesus. wasn't starting, well, wasn't playing because of the injury. If you're in our football gossip group, you'll know that me and another Arsenal fan called Anthony go back and forth about Jesus all the time. I was actually watching the game with him, Anthony. But I still think Jesus is highly talented on the ball, so I do think he adds a lot there. With Havertz, he's obviously been a failure for me, but I do think in yesterday's game he had Kanute's card. I don't know why Canute just couldn't get a glove on him. Personally, I feel like
I
yeah,
actually thought the opposite. I thought if when I saw he's not playing, I saw
yeah,
Havertz. I did
yeah.
think straight away, gosh, he's going to be more technical. He's more
Oh, okay,
technical dribbler. I think physicality, which is what more Jesus' game is. He's not as tactical. He's not as technical as Havertz.
mm,
I thought we would have handled him well, which is why when Jesus plays Liverpool for Arsenal, he's just been ineffective. So I was, but I saw that and I thought, I would have preferred Jesus to start. I think we would have had him in our
mm,
pocket. Havertz, you never know. He might miss
yeah.
his chance. He might miss a lot of chances, but
Oh no,
there's
he definitely get a chance to miss one, which he did. But I
yeah,
just feel like Canute couldn't get a
creativity.
glove on him because I felt in the
Yeah,
game, I feel like
okay.
Martinelli has Trent's card. He has his card. Like anytime,
Yeah.
I feel like Trent doesn't even want to tackle Martinelli, but I feel like Canute beat him at every battle they had. Every battle Canute was on him. Like he would, Martinelli couldn't outrun him. He couldn't barge into him. He couldn't do
Mm.
nothing with him. But with Havertz, he just kind of a bit rough in it. Like he's a bit rough, and you know,
I mean,
he,
our lineup was. I mean, the lineup was. It was
yeah,
Arsenal's fortunate day. He
mm,
didn't start Nunes, but the two big losses. Szoboszlai, who was coming
yeah,
back into form, actually was injured, and
we've seen him
Cody,
so.
our right back, who's
Okay,
been probably man of the match for the past 3 games,
yeah.
would have started. Actually, he would have started, but he had a bereavement in his family,
Mm-hmm.
so he
Do
couldn't
you,
start. So
Do you think ever, because obviously watching Trent in that game, he's having a really good season overall, but do you think ever it'll be the time where it's like, okay, enough is enough. Trent moves into the midfield? Because, I was speaking with some other people before we go back to the game, and people like Trent in the midfield, but nobody really knows what kind of natural midfielder is he. He's not really a 10, he's not necessarily an 8, he's not a DM. In that free, could he play in that free, and where would he play if he was to play in the Liverpool free? If Conor Bradley obviously takes over as the right back, because he seems more natural.
I I can't see Trent in a three against strong opposition.
Hmm.
I mean, I'd say if you're looking at the Premiership, you might get away with it with about half the teams because just the lack of quality, and Trent can probably you'll get away with it against the top 6, 8 sides. He'll struggle. I think he can play midfield, but in a 4-2-3-1 setup.
Hmm.
So if we don't get a defensive midfielder, he
Hmm.
could sit deep with McAllister in front of the back four. I
Yeah.
can see that those two, and then three and then four attackers in front of them. So I can see him in that role. But I don't know about a three. I'm not sure. I'd have to see him more often in that role as a three. He hasn't really
Mhm,
played too often. He usually plays the last 10, 15, 20
mhm,
minutes. And yes, it looks great because the team's tiring, the opposition's tired. But from the start, he's not been played in the midfield three yet. So it's hard to judge. Maybe it's hard to judge. But I see him, if he's going to play midfield in a 4-2-3-1, where him and McAllister, if it's going to be McAllister, sit and they can then control the game. They'll have control of the game. You give the ball to McAllister to Trent, they're going to find someone. And then you've got the four attackers, whichever four he goes for, in front. But yeah, I think Conor Bradley is really pushing for a permanent starting role in the 11. So you will see. I mean, it's not going to be Klopp's decision anyway. It's going to be another manager's decision. So yeah, we'll see how the new manager takes it.
mhm. So obviously in the game, the two big talking points were the goals were some sloppy defending, obviously for the own goal Gabriel scored, and some sloppy defending from both Allison and Van Dijk. So first thing is, who was at fault in your opinion for the Martinelli goal? Was it Van Dijk? Was it Allison? Was it a combination of both?
Oh, I say Van Dijk, but
Mhm,
unless Allison called.
mhm,
But I don't think he did. When they kept on showing the replays, I didn't see Allison move. So Van Dijk looks over his shoulder. He sees Martinelli closing. He
mhm,
sees Allison coming. One or two things Van Dijk's got to do. He's got to position himself between Martinelli
mhm.
and the ball. Don't worry about Allison.
Yeah.
He didn't put himself between the body. He didn't really put himself between Martinelli and the ball. And yeah, the ball the Allison kicked him and Madison had gone through. So I look at it and think, no, Van Dijk, you look behind you, Martinelli is closing, whack it clear.
Mhm,
Or at least get your body directly in front of Martinelli. Martinelli didn't have to do a lot of work, he just kept on running straight. He ran straight and scored. He didn't even like bend the run. So that meant Van Dijk wasn't positioning himself directly in front of Martinelli and the ball to make it difficult. So yeah, when I saw it at normal speed and in slow motion, I said this Van Dijk's fault, unless Allison shouted that it's mine, that's fine. But I didn't see Allison shout, so yeah, it's for me it's Van Dijk's fault unless
Mhm.
Allison gave a shout.
Mhm. So obviously since the win, it seems like the title's closer. We're only 2 points within each other. Man City have got 2 games to go. Has this hotted up the league? In your opinion, you said in the last show that you think Man City are the favourites,
Mm.
which I've posted now, guys. You can check that out. You can see it on the TikTok as well. Do you still think Man City are the favourites, or do you think it's any one of the three? How has your opinion
Oh, I
changed?
still think it's Man City. I think the
Mhm.
result favoured City, so I think City will be happy with that. And yeah, I think now it's City's to lose personally.
Mhm. So yeah, I want to speak a bit more about other games. So we want to talk about Chelsea, Fulham. Obviously, Chelsea losing at home 4-2. I've seen everyone everywhere talk about all the problems at Chelsea and what to do. I've seen them say replace Pochettino with Xavi Alonso. I've seen them say, we need to get in sporting directors. I've seen them talk about the ownership needs to change. I've seen them talk about transfer policy. In your minds, what is the major issue at Chelsea or major issues, and how do you think they should go about fixing it?
I for one, I personally don't think it's the managers. I
Mhm.
don't think the list of managers that they've had. I can't say that they were good managers and they
Mhm.
went to Chelsea and now they're bad managers.
Yeah.
Graham Potter for what, a year and a half, 18 months, 2 years at Brighton, fantastic. He goes to Chelsea. He's not a bad manager in six
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Pochettino, fantastic at Tottenham, okay at PSG,
Mhm.
doesn't become a bad manager at Chelsea.
Mhm.
I don't buy it. Similar to United, I don't buy these managers who go there
Yeah.
and don't bring success. It's their fault. They don't become bad managers. I think it's partly their recruitment policy. I think that's a large factor to it. And I wouldn't even say necessarily the owners,
Mhm.
because the owners have given Chelsea money to spend.
Yeah.
So no Chelsea fan could complain they haven't had money. They've had plenty of money.
Mhm.
So who's buying these players? It was the Graham Potter was not buying these players when he was in
Mhm.
charge. So there's something seriously wrong there with the sporting
Yeah.
director and the recruitment policy. That's where three-quarters of the problem lie, in my mind. It's not finance. The owners
Mhm.
are giving money. The managers don't go from good to bad. So it's in between the money and the manager, which is the recruitment and the selection of players. And it proves it in the summer because they were buying players. They did they need Latvia for 65 million? He's not
Yeah.
played.
No.
Um, I look and think, did they really need Casado for 150 million? I don't know, because him and Enzo don't complement each other.
Mhm.
So whoever's buying players didn't actually think about it
About
and look
where
and
to
say,
play them.
what players do we need in what positions? They just went to buy him. But
Yeah.
yet him and Fernandez, it, in what 22 games they played, don't look like they're going to work, and it doesn't look like it will work. There's an imbalance there. So someone's not doing their job properly, the recruitment or their
Yeah.
research enough. Strikers, obviously, we talked about Jackson enough. I'm not sure. I don't know his scoring record before. If it was
Mhm.
fantastic,
12
maybe.
goals. 12 goals last season for Villarreal.
Right. 12 goals in 30 odd games.
Mhm.
I don't know. In in a league that's probably weaker than the Premier League at the moment,
Mhm.
the Spanish league.
Yeah.
Um, and Midrick,
Yeah, Mudryk in January, but
Mudrick.
Mudryk.
Again,
Yeah.
I think Arsenal dodged a big bullet there, big one. For that money, for 80 million,
Mhm.
yeah, he started yesterday, hasn't looked. So
Mhm. I
whoever's
like
making these bums,
Nkunku. I think Nkunku looks good.
he's
He
the
looks
only
good.
buy.
Yeah, he's the only.
Yeah.
I agree
I
with
mean,
what
that defender,
oh,
bad, bad,
Balestier, and they bought
jeez.
Desali.
Yeah,
I agree
jeez.
with you. I agree with you, Uncle Steve. I think that one of the biggest issues I agree is not necessarily the management because, like you said, Tuchel was there, he got fired. Potter was there, he got fired. Lamps came back, Poch came in. Like all these managers, apart from Lampard, were not suddenly just rubbish managers. So I agree with you. I think that if you've had 2 years of a certain recruitment and you've had four managers come in and none of them's working, at some point you have to say, you know what, these players are not performing. So even with United, with Ten Hag, even if let's say he goes at the end of the season, some of those players still have to go, and regardless of anything else. So
Exactly.
the problem that I have, and I spoke to the Podfather, who's not here right now, about this, is their transfer policy. Todd Bowley, it almost looks like the policy that he has at Chelsea is to buy young players, but it's almost it doesn't really make sense. So I think there's two types of young players that you can get. You can get young players that have had half a season or a season of really good, and you buy them and hope that they become that player that they've had that one season of. Or you can buy players like Declan Rice, Super Sly, players that are a bit, maybe they're not super young, but maybe they're 23, 24. They've had 3 or 4 good years of solid football. So you more or less know that they're at a certain level. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
those sort of players, they may still be young, but they've played 3 or 4 seasons of first team football. A lot of these Chelsea guys, it's almost like they've had, Modric, for example, 6 months of Ukrainian football and the Champions League, and suddenly they think he's the best thing since sliced bread. Enzo, first season of football, another one. Never heard of him before. You know what I'm saying? Nicholas
Before the
Jackson.
World Cup, I never heard of Fernandez.
Yeah, exactly. Before the World Cup. Same thing with Nicholas Jackson, first real season of first team football. And so they signed, and they're not signing these players for cheap, but it's almost like I've noticed that Chelsea used to do things in a way where they'd either sign really young players for really cheap, Lukaku, Kevin, when they bought him, all these young 18, 19-year-olds, and they'd loan them out, and if it worked, they'd keep him. If not, they'd sell him. Or they bought really established players like Diego Costa. But now they've gone in between and they want to sign like Casado, but they don't want to spend wages. That's why they don't go for Rice and those sort of players. Have you realized? Because when you go for like
Big
Declan
money. They're
Rice
still on big
or
money.
huh?
But Casado must be, he's on about 250 a week.
No, no, he's not. He's not on 250. He's on because he was on what, like 5 grand. I think. Hold on, let me check it now. Let's get
You
these
can
facts.
check. I think he's on, I
Wages.
think them man like Latvia and Casado, they're on 200 to
150. 150.
no, Casado's not on 150 a week.
150.
No, because when when the
He
reason
was
why I
on
say that
60
is
grand
when
at Brighton.
I know he was on a lot of Brighton.
Yeah.
When Liverpool put in a bid for Casado,
Yeah.
we matched it.
Mm-hmm.
The salary wasn't a problem. Liverpool went in at 160, something 160,
Mm-hmm.
160, 170 for Liverpool. His head was turned because the agents basically wanted to bump up the fee
Mm-hmm.
and salary. And and he was going to follow whatever the agent said.
Mm-hmm.
Agent said Chelsea because they whatever they turned his head about Chelsea, but the agents were obviously about money. It's about money. So I thought he was on close to 200,000, if not
Yeah,
more.
but
He
Declan
said
Rice is on what
160. Okay,
250. No, I'm not saying that some of their players won't, but the most part they're
yeah,
doing these long contracts. I think Mudryk
yeah,
is
they're
another
doing
one on like
yeah,
one long
6 years, eight
contracts,
years.
lower, yeah,
Yeah,
lower money. They don't want to pay no one 300 grand, 350 no more, and they're getting these players that. For me, and I said this about Casado, I said I liked him. Stood. I think he's a decent player. I think he's a good player. But again, I've always had these question marks. I don't care how young or how old you are. When you've had one real season of football and you've really exceeded, I really have question marks about will he replicate it? And for the most part, when you see young players and they have really good seasons and they don't have a history of doing that before, for the most part, they revert back because it's always hard to repeat it. It's always hard. Consistency is one of the hardest things to do in football. We've seen it with Martinelli this season. Not a bad football player, but he's not having the season he had last season. So I get
yeah.
question marks. I'd rather get a player who played at a 7 if they're young for the last 3 or 4 years than get a player that didn't play or played a couple fives and then played one amazing season of a 9 and just assume they're going to play at that level again. And it looks like Chelsea, they did a lot of that. And let's be real, a lot of these players they've signed, we never heard of them. Let's go through the list of some of these Chelsea. We've never heard of them before they play for Chelsea. Let me get this list up quickly.
But I go back to that original statement.
Yeah.
Where did they want to play Casado and where did they want to play
Yeah.
Fernandez?
Yeah.
And
Yes,
if
you're
you
right
ask
about
them,
that.
they had no
You're
idea.
right. You're right about that.
Fernandez
Yeah.
plays in a similar role to
Mm-hmm.
Casado. In the World Cup where he's done,
Mm-hmm.
he played the deepest,
Mm-hmm.
McAllister and the other Argentina midfielder. In that plan, I think McAllister and the
Yeah.
other Di Stefano, they had a
Yeah.
better World Cup than Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
And Fernandez played deeper. So when Chelsea were after them, thinking, well, are they going to play a system where they're going to have them
Mm-hmm.
both playing
Yeah.
deep? And Conor Gallagher going forward. But then they're not, it's almost as if they're not sure which position where to run, who's going to go forward, who's going to go back between Casado and Fernandez. And Fernandez hasn't been that bad. He's been okay.
He's been okay.
Casado, again, you saw him on Sunday against Wolves. I mean, for the second goal, they just outstripped him, and that's not the first
He
time
looks
where
Bambi. He looks a bit Bambi, like Bambi on ice, and a bit lost.
yeah, a bit lost.
Yeah,
And
he looks a
Wolves
bit
took
lost.
it off him and scored. And that's about the second or third time
I
this
think
season
I
he's lost
think
possession
when I watch him
into a
at
goal.
Chelsea, first of all, that 100 price tag is a killer for most players. Most
Oh,
players. But when you put 100 million on a DM, yeah, people are not going to say it's enough for you to just be able to tackle. Yeah, that's the first part of it. At Chelsea, they're going to want you to be able to tackle, to touch, to make the passes, to make runs. And I don't know personally if Casado's that player that can do that much on the ball.
He can, because I saw enough of him at Brighton, not
Mm.
just last season,
Yeah.
the season before last, where he caught my eye was at United when Brighton
Mm.
played at Old Trafford, and I think it was a draw or they may have
Mm.
lost, but
Yeah.
his performance
3-2,
that
I
day
think.
was brilliant. And that's when he caught my eye because he was defensive, but he was making passes through the lines.
Hmm.
And I thought, okay, this guy's talent. Yes, he's a defensive midfielder, strong tackling, but on the ball, he turns, looks, he was playing for. I mean, Man United's Old Trafford's huge. It's a big pitch. So
Hmm.
he was threading these balls through to McAllister or the striker. So I actually thought there's definitely more to his game.
Yeah.
Even against Wolves, one of the goals he created again. So he's got something in his locker back going forward. But I thought when we offered 110, I couldn't believe it. There was something about me thinking, okay, I'm happy because we need it, but boy, that's way too
A
much money.
lot
I
of
think that
pressure, a
would
lot
blow
of
our
money.
budget. I'm
Yeah.
so glad, obviously, it didn't work out. Obviously,
Mhm.
we were fortunate. Yes. On the other hand, though, if we had bought him, would he be the same place he's at Chelsea?
Yeah.
100% not.
I
No.
think he'd be more suited to Liverpool, more fast pacing football, more running around, energy. I think he enjoys more of that. I think he doesn't seem like a player that just wants to stand there and pass it. He wants to really run around, have players, and in that midfield at Chelsea, he wants to have players as energetic as him. He looks better when he plays with Conor Gallagher than, probably when he plays with other players. He wants to run around and make moves and stuff like that. So I think in the Liverpool midfield, he'd suit that more. But yeah, if we go through the Chelsea signings, from Diassi to Badiashile, Modric, Jackson, Madueke. A lot of these players were players that, if we're being honest, Chelsea fans did not rate before they came. Most of the Premier League didn't rate. Not saying they're bad football players, but especially when I spoke to the Podfather, he said he wanted to go for the Champions League. Are these players that you would have signed expecting to get Champions League football with? A
Well,
lot of them. That's the thing.
yeah, that's
Jackson isn't
the
I don't think Jackson's a terrible striker. If you really realistically look at it, 32 million isn't that much. He's 20, what, 21, 22 years old. He had one season of football, scored 12 goals. Isn't terrible. Kind of similar to Hoyland's stats, if we're being honest. But would you sign that player? Would you even sign Hoyland necessarily to say, yo, I'm going this season, I need to get top four? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? That's not on your mind. Unless the rest of your team is ready, ready suited and ready done. Jackson
but
wasn't
with these
yeah.
he was ready, but with these signings,
Hmm.
it should be Chelsea's policy is if the manager's not actually signing these off,
Yeah.
why are they buying him? No club as big as Chelsea
Yeah.
buys players and say to the manager, "Here you go, we bought this player, work with him," and that's what it almost feels like.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a story that Potter turned up for training one time, and he asked one of his colleagues, "Who is that player?" He didn't even know, and that's a true story. He asked
I can
Potter,
believe that. I can
"Who is
believe
he
that.
again?" And he didn't know. And I thought to myself, "Why are Chelsea going over this policy? If they go with this policy,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the issue. The issue is who's selecting the players. Then they should say to Graham Potter, we're going to go through this policy of buying young players on long contracts. Give me a list of the players that you want, two or three players under the age of 23, 24. That's
Mm-hmm.
different. But
Mm-hmm.
they're buying these players and then saying to Potter
There you
or
go.
Lampard,
Yeah, deal
you
with them.
work with them. It doesn't work. In comes
Mm-hmm.
Potter, work with these players. These aren't Potter's
Yeah.
players. These are picked by
And then,
sporting directors. Who's that?
some of these players as well, looking at the losses, some of these players, there's questions that, like I would say with Arsenal, we had question marks about Havertz. I'm still question marking him. I don't think he's worth the money currently. Will he be worth the money in the future? I don't think he will. We're looking back, but he's not even been he's been great. But I look at some of these Chelsea players when I'm like, when they signed them, we knew the issue. Before Fofana, everybody in the Premier League knew Fofana was a sick note. We knew he couldn't stay fit to save his life. The guy's been injured for the last 3 years. Chelsea signed him injured. Yeah, in 75 million in the bin. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Reece James is the captain and he's always injured. I don't understand why he's the captain. No one can explain that to me. Why the player you signed is always injured. So I just look at it and I think that, like you said, the director of football needs to say, okay, bring the manager in. Poch needs to come out and say, this is the formation I want to play. This is the way I want to play. And they need to say, okay, we're going to try and get players to suit that. Because from the way that I look at the way Poch plays, for me, in my opinion, looking at the Chelsea team, I question mark both of those goalkeepers. Who were they before this season, really? Did anyone rate them like that? Not really. I question mark the left backs. I think Chilwell probably done. He's been injured for years now. He's done, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's past his best.
The other guy as well, Cucurella, finished. He was finished from the second he got there. Reece James, question marks. But again, he's a very good player when he's fit. So you can't,
Yeah.
no plans. That Gusto right back, he's all right. Fofana, sick note. Badiashile, he's okay. That Diaz guy, decent. Thiago Silva needs to be retired. Like, he's on his way out. Enzo is a very talented player. I'll be the first one to say that.
He's a
But
good player and he's done all
where
right.
does
He's
he?
done okay.
What is he like? When I think about
I
him,
know.
people tell me, is he Cruz? Is he Mudrich? Is he? You know what I mean? Like, is he Camavinga? Like, is he getting forward to take shots? Is he staying back
At the
like
moment,
Taylor?
it looks like he's a box to box.
Yeah,
There's
you know
no
what I mean?
real. He's not a
Mhm.
defensive, but he's not a
No,
creator. He's like a box
exactly.
to
Yeah.
box. He's a box to box midfielder.
Mhm.
So therefore, I don't to say that he's a defensive
Yeah.
midfielder. He seemed
It doesn't make sense
unsure.
because normally you have the either if you're going to play one defensive, you normally have one that's slightly more attacking, but he's not necessarily an attacking guy.
No,
So
no, he's
yeah, it
not.
almost takes that away. The only player that I would say is I'm impressed. Cole Palmer shocked me. I've been
Yeah,
impressed.
yeah.
He's been very good. You know what I mean? But a lot of those other guys, even Sterling,
Oh, he's been poor. He
yeah, like
started okay, and he's
mm,
gone off the boil.
yeah.
Mudrick has been
He's
poor.
been listen. Well, the podfather said he needs to go on a loan. That lets you know. If I play for 80 mil, he needs to go on a loan.
No one's gonna go. What's his salary? What, 150,
Yeah,
200?
150 is a lot of money for him to go to like Crystal Palace and something on loan where he needs to go. Yeah, I mean, and when I watch Modric players, they just don't. It almost seems like a lot of players went there for the check. They don't really know what's going on. They're just
They
kind
have
of
gone there for the year, and
yeah,
that's
they've
the,
gone there
a lot of that's down to the agents. They've sold
exactly.
them London.
Mhm.
They've sold them this money, and they
Yeah.
come to London, and it's like, oh, I want to go to London and playing for
Mhm.
Chelsea, and they've got a good recent history,
Mhm.
and they're getting paid lots of money. Of course, they're gonna jump at it. So
That's true.
the agents, a lot they have a lot to answer for, but they're
So
doing their job. They just want to make money.
yeah, to talk about United, United are winning games now. It looks like Hoyland's really starting to get those goals, scored a really good goal on the weekend. Garnacho's going back to scoring ways. You've seen United fans poke their head out the woodwork suddenly and said that they've got United's future sorted. I before I ask you about the United future, yeah, I wanted to say that first of all, I've heard everyone talks about the future, but United, I felt like they said the same thing 8 years ago when Rashford and Martial were there. Our future's sorted. We've got Rashford and Martial this whole future talk with Mano, Garnacho,
I
and
look at their, I look at the Man United team and the squad in it. No, nothing. Mano looks promising, but
yeah,
again, don't overhype him. He's had 3 or 4 really good games. You
yeah,
don't, suddenly he's world class and he's great and he's a great. Let's see, continue to let's have another season out of him first.
yeah,
Highland, Garnacho, they don't look like they go to. How can I put it? They're good players.
mhm,
They may even slightly improve, but I don't see enough. But I might be wrong, and they're young, so but I haven't seen enough of their skill and talent to make me think, wow, yes, they're At, for example, at 18, you saw Wayne Rooney, you
mhm,
knew Wayne
yeah,
Rooney's going to be a top
yeah,
player. You
you
just
know,
knew. Even at 3 or 4 games, you just
mhm,
knew. And there's certain players at 18, 19,
you
you
know,
know they're going to go on. No
mhm.
question about it. I don't feel that with Garnacho or Holland.
Mbappe,
I'm not
yeah,
saying they're
you
bad.
knew,
Yeah,
yeah,
when Cristiano went to United and he's doing the tricks, you know that yeah, he's gonna thrive. I don't feel that with them, Garnacho
mhm,
or Hoyland. I think they'll improve. How
mhm,
much improvement? I don't know.
mhm.
But I still think they're still a bit of a mess. I think they were a tiny bit fortunate yesterday against West Ham. West Ham had 2 early chances. If one of them goes in, it's a different
Emerson,
story.
that left, oh, that was shocking when he was through and he
Oh
took the
God, yeah,
shot and
everything. He didn't know what to do to cross it or shoot. So they got away with it yesterday, and Wolves with pure luck that he's good. They got that win in injury time. So yeah, they want to run, which is great, but I don't look at them and think anything more than just a mid-table team.
mhm. It's
I
true.
don't think they're top four. I
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
even
I
think they're
think
top six.
United have still got issues. I think, like the fact that they're talking about the future. And they did listen, Hoyland's looking very good right now. They're going on a good run. You want to take the feel good of that and you want to start building around that, building around the newer players. You want to start saying, okay, Garnacho's in the team, Hoyland, hopefully, and you start building around the newer players and get rid of the deadwood because they've got, a lot of deadwood in that team. I think they can successfully let go of Casemiro at the end of the season because, based on what Casemiro was given this season, Mano will be better than him already. Not better than what he is this season, not what he was last season. So you can start getting rid of Deadwood, but I think they're a long way away from,
Yeah,
thinking
exactly.
about winning the league or anything like that.
Oh, no.
Far
I
off
think
that,
for the top four, I
yeah,
think they need 2 midfielders and probably
yeah,
2 defenders.
yeah. I
Um,
think, yeah. Well,
that's
I
their
don't. I
priority.
would say across the back line. I think they, for me, in my opinion, they need a left back, the right back, centre backs, because look, I look at it like this. I think I'm not even saying Arsenal, and Liverpool are the best, but we even us, we had several players missing from those teams, and I believe that this Arsenal team would beat United. We have Timber out, we have Party out, we had Jesus out of that team, we had Tomiyasu out of that team. So there were 4 players that were missing. Same with your team. I look at
Mm.
United and I realistically think that they have injuries, but I don't look at players and think, they're missing anyone that's that quality that really, their
No,
best players
exactly.
are available. So, you guys are missing
Exactly.
Salah, etc. So I do think they're a long way away.
What was what in your opinion? Sancho's gone to Dortmund and he's
Yeah,
he's playing well. He's playing
yeah,
ripping up.
yeah.
why couldn't he do that at United or even show any signs? There was a glimpse last season and the season
Yeah,
before, like a good glimmer.
yeah.
But when he did
I
play,
think I think it's a
he's gone to
combination.
Dortmund and
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think that he's a player with a personality where I think, he wants to feel the love. I feel like no one ever talks about it, but I feel like he was kind of upstage when Ronaldo came. Nobody speaks about it because I think he was the marquee
yeah,
signing that season. He was the one they were going to put the thing
yeah,
behind. Ronaldo comes, steals all the stage, what's it called, and he almost has to change the way he plays to play with Ronaldo and stuff like that. But like, I think he was supposed to be the highlight of that summer. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I don't know if United ever really understood him as a player. I don't know if Ten Hag did. I don't know. I think they wanted him to be a traditional winger. He is not a traditional winger. He is closer to a Jack Grealish than he is to a Martinelli or a Salah. He's not sprinting past people, doing step overs and speeding, whatever. He's more of a passer, short pass, 1-2, 1-2, get in the box. Quite a clever football player. So I don't know if they ever understood him. And I just think partly is him as well. Like, as him as a player, he has to take responsibility. I think as a player, just because he's thinking in his head, I'm one of the highest paid. There's other players that are maybe playing worse than me, Anthony, etc. Probably not getting criticized as much as me. But as a football player, you have to take responsibility and say, you know what? If the manager, first of all, Ten Hag didn't sign him. So Ten Hag wants Anthony to
yeah,
work because he's like, I signed him. I didn't sign you. So you don't work out. Here's what it
yeah,
is. But he needs to take personal responsibility. If the manager wants to play on the right, you have to play on the right. If you have to play up front, if you have to play centre mid. And obviously, from what I hear, they wanted to create him into a false nine at one point. They wanted him to play on the right at one point. He didn't want to do it. He only wanted to play on the left. Obviously he has issues. And I think so he has to take responsibility. So it's a trifecta of things. But I think certain players, this is what I'd say. One thing I respect about certain football players, yeah, and I'm not saying this about him, is certain football players, and it's quite a few of them. I've seen it with Michael Essien, I've seen it with Gerrard, I've seen it with like tons of football players where no matter what, they will always do what the manager wants them to do. And if the manager's an idiot and doesn't know what he's doing, he's gonna get sacked, like everybody else.
yeah.
But they will
Mhm.
not be out in the media saying, "Oh, this manager, whatever." Like for Gerrard, just give Gerrard an example. Gerrard, I've seen Gerrard play right mid. I've seen Gerrard play right back, centre mid, defensive mid, attacking mid. He will not complain. He just, okay, manager. I remember Benitez said, I don't think he's technical enough to play in the midfield. Want to play him on the right? Fine, play on the right.
Yeah. Mm.
He's not going to complain. He's going to do his job. And if he's not playing that well, then it's a thing on the manager because he's listening
Yeah.
to what the manager says. Whereas certain players now these days, a lot of football players these days are like, if you don't play me the way I want to play and make me feel good, and the temperament is a bit different. You know what I mean? In these sort of players.
The things with those players is ego because when Benitez said that about Gerrard, you're right. But
Yeah.
Gerrard looked at the midfield and saw Alonso Mascherano and
Yeah.
probably admitted, well, yeah, Alonso
Yeah. Right.
Mascherano, yeah, he's got a point.
Yeah.
Gerrard can turn and say, "Oh, I've got more energy than them box to
Yeah.
box. I can cross, I can whip a ball in from the
Yeah.
right hand side. I can pass it." But yeah, technically,
Mm.
and Gerrard will see in training.
Mm.
Alonso and
Yeah.
Mascherano, he's not
The
guarding him.
quality. Yeah.
The thing is, I totally agree with you there because I've said this to many people. Solskjaer bought Sancho
Yeah. He
to
did
play on
that.
the left and to play
Yeah.
him. He was the marquee signing, right? And
Mhm.
Solskjaer had a plan. Solskjaer didn't sign Ronaldo. That was the
Yeah.
United
That was a
board
club
that signed
signing.
Ronaldo. That just tore everything up. So Sancho probably, as a 20-year-old young kid, got into a strop in the sulk. It's probably still
Yeah.
carried it on.
Mhm.
Solskjaer got sacked. The Hag's coming, and
Yeah.
it's just gone. Obviously, it's just spiraled down. And obviously, for him to say what he said about Ten Hag, it's obviously frustration, and
Mhm.
obviously it kicked back because of
Mhm.
what Ten Hag said about him in the past. But it's a shame because I think Sancho's a really good player. I remember
Mhm.
thinking, oh my god, if Liverpool got him, um,
I think
in
he's.
the sense of
Yeah.
last season, when I thought to myself, if Salah was going to go, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
yeah,
To be fair, I
Sancho,
think I think in the right team, again, I think Sancho's a completely different player in my opinion. If he went into a team that's already flying, high performing players, everybody's doing well, I think he performs. I don't look at it and think, oh, but he's looking at United and he's probably thinking, I'm getting criticized. I think he scored 7, 8 goals last season. So you remember there was a point last season where he
he
was
did,
all right,
yeah,
like 3 or 4
he
games.
showed
He was
glimpses,
was getting
showed
over it. So
glimpses,
he's probably looking at the team thinking, this Anthony guy's rubbish. You know what I'm saying? Garnacho's not
yeah,
playing as well as me. Martial's
he's
not
not
doing
getting the
anything.
team.
This guy's not doing, and I'm the one can't get in the team, and I'm getting criticized. Me, this doesn't make sense. And to be fair, he might have a point, but what I will always say is you have to put your head down as a football player. Lampard said, I've seen tons of football players, Essien, etc. Henri. I've seen him say the boss is the boss, isn't it? Like he's the manager of the team. I don't think I'm
But
bigger than the boss. Yeah,
but as these players are saying, if they've
yeah,
seen this,
mhm,
they're gonna kick back. And as
yeah,
somebody made a point yesterday on Talk Sport or the other day,
mhm,
Sancho was punished for what he's done, for his behaviour,
yeah,
talking out. Rashford twice now this season has been out partying,
Mhm.
mistraining, but he's welcomed back into the fold. So you can
Mhm.
see discrepancy. There's no
Yeah.
consistency in the discipline.
Yeah, of course.
Rashford has been there longer, it's more
Mhm.
experience, should know better.
Yeah.
Twice this season now, he's missed training because he's been out partying and doing what he's doing. And
Yeah.
yeah, slapping the wrist, he's back in the fold.
Mhm.
Sancho does it. It's all, it's all over the news.
Mhm.
Ten Hag says he's put him training with the B team,
Yeah.
and it's far, far worse punishment than obviously Rashford. So the consistency. So again, Sancho's seen that thinking, of the minute. So
Exactly. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
partied, that's what he got, and he's partying again. So obviously Ten Hag's got to be more
Favoritism,
consistent.
definitely. Favoritism,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's clear to see
Yeah.
with
It's
everything.
definitely favoritism. And but to be fair, there's always favoritism. It's always favorites. Managers always whether we like it or not, we can try and get them as impartial as possible, but managers always have favorites. They always
But
have favorites.
he's thinking, yeah, Rashford's a favourite. But what has he done to be favourite this season? He's probably having his worst season possibly in a United shirt. So what favouritism when your star player is having a worst season and we're over halfway through the season? If he
Mhm.
was banging in the goals, no argument. If Rashford got 12 goals this season, no one's got an argument to say about him because he had a late night. Well, who scores the goals? That was his first Premiership goal on Saturday.